All right, good evening, everyone. Let's begin. So it is a schos Baruch Hashem to be able to spend a few moments together preparing for the Yom Tov of Yom Kippur. There's so much to say about this day and so many incredible dynamics of Yom Kippur, and especially, again, at first I really thought I was going to focus on a little bit more the topic of Yom Kippur on Shabbos, as it is a fascinating dynamic that brings together two dramatic streams of Kedusha into one incredible tapestry of Yamim Noraim. But we're going to focus on something a little bit different. Take a look at number one. The Gemara Maseches Taanis says as follows. Rav Shimon Gamliel said as follows. Lo hayu Yamim Tovim LiYisrael kechamisha asar ba'av u'kiyom Kippurim. There were no greater days for Klal Yisrael than the 15th of Av and Yom Kippur. So 15th of Av is Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur. So we'll save Tu B'Av for a different Shemir Tzashem. So the Gemara says, what happened? What's Yom Kippur? Why is Yom Kippur such a source of tremendous simcha? So Bishlam Yom Kippurim, why? Mishum de'isbei slicha u'mechila. So the Gemara says, I understand why Yom Kippur is a day of simcha. Why? Because Yom Kippur has two elements associated with it. Slicha, now it's interesting, because slicha, mechila, what's the definition of slicha, mechila? Right? So the truth is, remember, this is one of the unique distinctions between Lashon HaKodesh Hebrew and English, which is, in English, you can have many words that mean the same thing. In Lashon HaKodesh in Hebrew, there's no such thing as two words that mean the same thing. They may translate, for example, so slicha and mechila both translate usually as forgiveness. But there's no need for two different words for forgiveness. Either use slicha or mechila. We have this in Shmona Esrei also, right? Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu, mechal lanu makinu ki fashanu. So already, by the way, just from Shmona Esrei, you see what's the difference between slicha and mechila? So remember again, slach lanu avinu ki chatanu. What's the definition of a chet? Sin. What kind of sin? Chet is usually understood to mean accidental sin. Shogeg, slach lanu avinu ki chatanu. Forgive us, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for all of our unintentional averos. Mechal lanu makinu ki pashanu. A pesha is an intentional sin with intention to rebel. So interestingly enough, you see that again, just like there's chet and there's pesha, so too again, there's mechila, or there's slicha and mechila. So on the most basic level, slicha seems to be forgiveness for accidental averos versus mechila, which seems to be forgiveness for intentional averos. But again, we'll leave that on the side for now. Point over here, the Gemara says, is why is Yom Kippur an incredibly joyous day? Why is it such a day of simcha? Because the ispe slicha umechila. It is a day that has forgiveness. Now, by the way, where does the concept of Yom Kippur being a day of forgiveness come from? What's the origin of Yom Kippur being a day of forgiveness? So the truth is, we'll see a pasuk. But remember, again, it's an important event that occurred on Yom Kippur that concretizes Yom Kippur's identity as a day of forgiveness. Yom Kippur is the day when Moshe Rabbeinu came down with the second set of luchos. Remember again the timeline. Moshe Rabbeinu comes down with the first set of luchos, first set of tablets on the 17th of Tammuz. He goes ahead and he breaks them. Then there's a couple of sets of 40 days, and the next time he comes down with the second set of luchos is on Yom Kippur, the 10th of Tishrei. So the second set of luchos were a physical representation, a physical manifestation of divine forgiveness. So Yom Kippur as a day of forgiveness, already again, Moshe Rabbeinu really highlighted that yesod for us. But if you take a look at number two, the pasuk in Vayikra says something very beautiful. The pasuk says, Ki bayom hazeh yechaper aleichem litar eschem mikol chatosechem lifnei Hashem titaru. So what's interesting is, whereas the Gemara refers to Yom Kippur as a day of slicha umechila, which is incredible, that's not how the Torah refers to it. The Torah refers to Yom Kippur as a day of kapara and tara. Kapara means atonement, tara, purification. So interesting. So obviously we're going to focus a little bit more on the way that the Torah characterizes the day, and we'll leave aside slicha mechila for just a moment, and focus a little bit more on kapara and tara. Now, once again, what we have to try to understand is wherein lies the distinction between these two concepts. Right? So now we have kapara, we have tara. What's the difference between kapara and tara, atonement and purification? And here, Rabbi Soloveitchik gave a tshuva drasha every year. So the Rav's tshuva drasha could go on for 3 to 4 hours. So the fact that a rabbi could speak for 3 to 4 hours, that's not a chiddush, right? The chiddush was that people stayed and listened, right? That was the incredible thing. And Rabbi Soloveitchik says tshuva drashos were written down in a sefer called Ala Tshuva. That's what I'm quoting to you over here in number 3. And Rabbi Soloveitchik spoke about this concept of kapara and tara. What are the differences between these concepts and how do they link into the identity of this? So take a look in source number 3 Aleph. So Rabbi Soloveitchik writes as follows: Kidei lahavin mahin kapara v'tara shel Yom Kippurim. So in order to understand what is the kapara and tara of Yom Kippur, yesh ladas mahim chiyuv v'tuma b'yachas lachet. So look what he writes. He says, hachet va'onsho noldu ke'echad. So essentially what Rabbi Soloveitchik points out over here is something very interesting. Sin has 2 automatic byproducts. Every sin has 2 automatic results. First he says, ein chet, the end of paragraph Aleph, ein chet below onesh. Im onesh bebeis din shalmata, vim onesh bebeis din shalmala. Sin always has punishment. This is an important idea. It's not a pleasant idea to think about or to discuss, but every chet, every sin comes with punishment. There is no action that doesn't have a reaction. So a person commits an avera, there is going to be an onesh. There's going to be a punishment. Now, that punishment can be experienced here in this world. That punishment can be experienced in the world to come. But there's every single chet. In fact, the Gemara says, whoever says that the Ribono Shalom is a vatran, whoever says that Hashem just forgives everything, the Gemara says, Yivatchu me'oy, let his inside spill out, which is a way of saying it's incorrect. In other words, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgives, and we're going to talk about that, but this idea that Hashem just gives us a pass for the sake of giving us a pass is theologically, fundamentally incorrect. Every single avera comes with an onesh, comes with a punishment. That's part 1. Part base, paragraph base. Kapara, on the other hand, chet does something else. What else does chet do? He points out over here, and this is incredible. He says, kapara, we'll work back a little bit. Actually, skip to paragraph gimel for just a moment. So let me go a little bit out of order. Avalachit gam metame. But sin does something else. Sin creates tumah. Now, how do we translate tumah? We translate tumah often as impurity. So remember again, in Yiddishkeit, the interesting part is what's the definition of impurity? The definition of impurity is the absence of purity, right? In other words, tumah is what is created when there is no tara. That's why people, sometimes tumah is translated as unclean or impure. It's not really a correct word, right? There are many different ways a person could become tameh. A person could become tameh through physiological processes. A person could become tameh through contact with a corpse. A person could become tameh through contact in so many different ways. So tumah is not impure or unclean, but rather tumah represents the absence of tara, the absence of purity. Where there is a void, where there is a lacking of tara, then by definition there is tumah. Rabbi Soloveitchik says something amazing. He says, chet causes tumah. Now this is a very profound concept. That every single time I commit an avera, every single time I do something wrong, at the end of the day it engenders a sense of spiritual impurity. You know, it's interesting, if I were to ask you, what's the reason most of us sin? I know no one ever wants to answer this question, right? What's the reason most of us sin? All right, so you could say taiva, desire, okay, but the truth is that makes it sound like we're animals and have no control over our desires, which is not true, right? Yetzer hara, okay. Once again, those are always interesting because even Yetzer hara, so what? Every single time the Yetzer hara pulls me to do something, I do it. There are plenty of times that I fight back against my Yetzer hara. So some say no, the 2 classic answers are taiva and gaiva, right? That ultimately it's desire or arrogance. Like an arrogance that essentially says, life is about making myself happy. And I should be able to do whatever I want that makes me happy. God tells me I can't do it. Who is God to tell me what to do? You know what's interesting is, what is the most common first word for children? No. Now, I'm sure the speech therapist is going to say it's monosyllabic. I'm sure there's a whole, on a deep ruchni level, understand how profound that is. The first thing we do from the moment that we command the power of speech is we exercise our perceived power of self-autonomy, right? So this little shmendrik walking around in a diaper, right, says no, as if to say like, ani agever, I'm the man. Don't tell me what to do, I'm in charge. Now it sounds so crazy, but you'd be surprised how many of us go through the rest of our lives, like without the diaper, but with that, at least for a couple of years, right? But then, like, we do that same thing. That sin often comes about because of a sense of arrogance, that I should be able to do whatever I want, however I want, whenever I want. And it's interesting because, when you say it, it sounds so crazy. So instead what we do is we do like a lot of spiritual and intellectual gymnastics, right? We create alternate hashkafas, or alternate isms, or alternate movements, all in order to justify our lack of adherence to tenets of halacha, to mitzvos, to different precepts. But at the end of the day, when you boil it down, it's just simply me saying to God, don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me what to do. I know you're God, but I'm me, and I'm in charge of me. Don't tell me what to do. So you have gaiva, you have taiva, all very valid reasons. The truth is, deep down, the real reason why we commit averos is because we think that we could do it and it's not going to have an impact on me. In other words, if I knew the impact of chet, I wouldn't do it. At the end of the day, the psychology of chet is, I'm going to do this thing that I want to do now, and let's be honest, 9 out of 10 times, I know that it's wrong. I know full well that it's wrong, but I'm going to do it anyway. And what's the logic? The logic behind it is because I believe that I could be the person who does this now, and then I'm going to kind of put that in a box, and I could go back to just being who I was, 10 minutes later. That I know it's bad, but it's not going to have a residual impact on me. That's how we justify hate, and we do this all the time. We allow ourselves to be in situations that we know are not good situations, but we convince ourselves it won't have an impact on me. Or sometimes we allow ourselves to associate with people or be in relationships that are not healthy, that are not conducive to personal growth. And we tell ourselves, it's okay, this person, this situation, this chevra is not going to have an impact on me. And we convince we are very convincing. We convince ourselves of that by pretending that my actions won't have an impact on who and what I am. Comes along Rabbi Soloveitchik and says, it's so profoundly false. Everything we do has an impact on who and what we are. That's what he means when he says, chet brings tumah. Chet brings tumah. It's an interesting idea. Imagine just on a basic level, a person goes, so we're desensitized to this because we don't really have the halachos of tum and tahara today, the laws of ritual purity and impurity. But imagine for a moment, a person goes to a levaya, right? Now going to a levaya, participating in a funeral, helping to bury the dead is a chesed shalanis. It's the highest level of chesed. But what happens after you go to the cemetery? What happens? You're tameh. But I did something so beautiful. So of course, you did something great. But everything we do has an impact on who and what we are. The good stuff, the positive things have a positive impact, and the negative things have a negative impact. Every chet brings with it a sense of tumah. So Rabbi Soloveitchik says, now when we look at this, we see every chet, every sin brings onesh, punishment, and brings tumah, and brings impurity. Now what Rabbi Soloveitchik does is something amazing. Go back now to number 2. Now we understand the profundity of Yom Kippur. What happens on Yom Kippur? Ki bayom hazeh yechaper aleichem litaher. So amazingly enough, the Torah says, what does Yom Kippur do? Yom Kippur does 2 things, kapara and tara. What's kapara? What's atonement? What does kapara represent? Kapara essentially is the same thing as mechila. What does it mean if you're mochel someone? Right? You forgive it. Now, interestingly enough, the concept of mechila has its origins where? And actually in dinei mamanis, in financial law. If you lend me $1,000 and then you forgive the debt, that's called mechila. So mechila means I owe you something, but you are releasing your claim against me. So what does he mean when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mochelas or soleh? Right? When he ultimately, again, he's mechaper, what does that mean? It means he has a claim against me. The Moshe has a claim against you. What's the claim? I committed an Avera brings with it an onesh, brings with it a punishment. So I am owed a punishment. Kadosh Baruch Hu is mochel. That's the lashon of yichaper. Kapara, atonement, means mechila, means forgiveness. That means that Yom Kippur has the ability to remove the onesh component of sin. But as you spoke about before, sin doesn't just engender punishment. What else does sin engender? What else? Tumah. And that's what the Torah says, litaher eschem. So Yom Kippur brings tara. The power and profundity of this day is to achieve these two levels of kapara and tara. Kapara, I have the ability to remove the punishments. Which punishments? Everything. The Rambam brings down that halacha l'maisa, Yom Kippur can take care of everything. There are certain things that Yom Kippur by itself can't take care of. According to the Rambam, at least, like Chil Hashem, for example, the Rambam says that Yom Kippur is not enough for atonement. But leaving aside the Rambam's position, we go with the approach that Yom Kippur could be mechaber, could take away all onshin, all punishments. And Yom Kippur has, and that's incredible, right? That's step one. And then step two, l'tara eschem. Yom Kippur brings tara. Yom Kippur brings purity, that all of the tumah that has accrued and that has amassed on my neshama as a result of a year of doing averos, a lot of mitzvos also, but of doing averos and thinking that those averos don't change me, they don't have an impact on me. Meanwhile, like the residual tumah plaque, spiritual plaque is building up, comes Yom Kippur, and Yom Kippur wipes all of that out. Incredible. This is the profundity of this day. The greatest challenge, I'm sure all of us have this moment, where you think about the Yom Kippur would be so much better, like with a cup of coffee, right? What I mean, like imagine for a moment, if you had to fast, but imagine you just got to start the day, right, with a cup of coffee. Then I'd be I'd be engaged, and I could type. One of the hardest things of Yom Kippur is there's so much power and so much profundity, and we're slogging along, like we're exhausted for so much of it already. The truth is, the funny part, it already begins kol nidre, right? Already at night, you come into shul, everybody's full, you're tired, you're dozing off. This, that. If you think about it, finally, the time that most people really wake up for Yom Kippur is when? Ne'ilah, right? And it's the most frustrating thing in the world. It's almost over. There's like an hour left, and now I get that boost of energy. And okay, but we take whatever we can get. But it's important. That's why it's important for us to kind of acquaint ourselves with these concepts, to push ourselves a little bit. There's so much that is happening on this day, so many beautiful things. Imagine again, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, just show up, and again, I'm going to take away all of your own show. I'm going to take away all of your punishments, and I'm going to remove all of your tumah, and all of it happens on Yom Kippur. And to reinforce this a little bit, take a look at number 5. I'm sorry, going out of order for just a moment. So the Gemara says, Rebbe Omer. Rebbe espouses an incredible idea in the Gemara. Rebbe says, I'll call averos sheba Torah. On all of the averos I have in the Torah, ben asa tshuva, ben lo asa tshuva, yom hakippurim mechaper. This is the famous position of Rebbe in the Gemara, what we call itzumo shel yom mechaper. Rebbe says that Yom Kippur is so powerful that even if you do nothing the entire day, even if you go to sleep right when the fast starts and you get up right when the fast is over, Yom Kippur atones for you. This is actually very important halachically as well, because this is why, and sometimes this is difficult for people to wrap their head around a little bit. The most important thing in Yom Kippur is fasting. And even if it means that a person should stay home and relax and not go to shul, which is frustrating on Yom Kippur, but that enables them to fast, the ikr on Yom Kippur is the fast. And Rebbe says that's because the day itself atones. It's fascinating. According to Rebbe, not everybody agrees with this statement, but according to Rebbe, the power of Yom Kippur is almost like this de facto reality that is not dependent on what I do or don't do. All I need to do is actually go through a Yom Kippur. Even if I don't experience the Yom Kippur, I just have to literally live through the Yom Kippur, and Yom Kippur goes in and takes care of that kapara and that tower. Isn't that incredible? The day itself cleanses me of everything, takes away all of my punishments, and takes away all of my tumah as well. But there's another piece to Yom Kippur as well, which is incredible. So this by itself is incredible, right? sometimes we don't even fully appreciate the profundity of what we have. Often when it comes to Yamim Noraim, we get so wrapped up in the overwhelming nature of judgment, right? That becomes the be-all, end-all of these days. Are we judged? Yes, we're judged. Are we inscribed in the book of life or Chason, the book of death? Yes. Yes, that is a reality. All of humanity is inscribed in one sefer or the other. But that's only part of the story. That's only part of the story. There's a cathartic experience of these days that is meaningful and beautiful. I know it's going to sound strange, no matter what the outcome is. Whichever book I'm going to be inscribed in, because there's so many different shikulim, so many different calculations, Kadosh Baruch Hu has when he decides that. No matter where he puts me, at the end of the day, the days themselves are so incredibly profound. The ability to go through a day where I am wiped clean, where I just go ahead and all the tumah is removed, and all of the onshim, all of the punishments are removed. And at least according to Rebbe, all I have to do is just almost like open up my heart to that dynamic, and it sweeps through me as something incredibly amazing. But there's one additional dynamic. So I want to share with you what I think is a really incredible story. I saw this. There is a famous musician in Eretz Yisrael by the name of Rav Hillel Palei. So Hillel Palei, he composed the Ochila. The Ochila, I'm not going to sing it, but okay, it's the beautiful one that everybody sings now. So there's a incredible video from Tafshin Pei Gimel 2 years ago. He did a Pre-Yomim Noroim, like Hisaras Akomzitz in the Yeshivat Hesder in Ramat Gan. And before he started singing a song, he asked, it was incredible. It's actually an incredible video. The Rosh Yeshiva was sitting up there on the stage with him, and he asked the Rosh Yeshiva if he could say a few words of introduction to the next piyut that he was going to sing. And he told, Rav Hillel Palei tells the following story. If you remember, on August 11th, 2022, it was Tu B'Av. There was a terrible accident in Yerushalayim, where a bus lost control. This is where the driver stepped off the bus. Something happened with the brake, and the bus plowed into a group of people standing right by the Rav Shefa Mall on Shamgar Street in Yerushalayim. So, Rahman al-Islam, there was a mother, Shoshana Glustin, who was 40 years old, and her two daughters, Chai Sarah and Chana, two daughters, 7 and 2, from Ofakim, who were killed. So Rav Palei's daughter-in-law, Basheva, was injured in that bus accident. She had just been married for a couple of months. She was a newlywed, and she was severely injured. So severely injured that she had to have both legs amputated above the knee. In intense therapy for over a year. So he's telling the story in front. It's the most moving and incredible story. So he tells that she was unconscious for a long time as well. And her husband, again, a newlywed, a new chassan, is obviously, by her bedside the entire time. And when she regains consciousness and enough awareness, she says to him something amazing. She said to him, and he quotes it in Hebrew, I'll just say, she said, "Tagidu li ha'emet, tell me the truth." She turns to her husband. This is a young girl, 21 years old, turns to her husband. She said, "If you knew that this was going to happen to me, would you have married me?" So this young man, a lot of things you learn in yeshiva, right? This is not one of them. But this young man, who obviously is a precious neshama, he turns to her and he says, "If you're asking me, would I have married a woman without legs? The answer is no. I wouldn't have married a woman without legs." But he says, I want to quote you. He says, but here's the difference. He says, if this would have happened lifnei chatuna, before the wedding, he says, zekara lach, then that would have been something that occurred to you. But now that it happened, acharei chatuna, zekara lanu. It happened to us. It happened to us. And then Rav Palei relays it. It's so incredible that his son turns to his kala, they had just been married a couple of months, and he says to her, "Ani koreit itach brit chadasha." He says to her, the marriage that we had, that's done. And the life that we had, that's done. This is now a new relationship. This is a new marriage. Ani koreit itach brit chadasha. I'm making with you a new bris, a new covenant, a new beginning. And Rav Pillai goes on and he says something so beautiful. He says, if you look at the piyut, one of the piyutim in Musaf, quoted off to you over here in source number 4. So the beautiful piyut reads, Tilavev esra yasacha. So it's describing the power of Yom Kippur. And what's the power of Yom Kippur? The power of Yom Kippur is Tilavev esra yasacha, literally means, Tilavev means like awaken your heart. Or really like fall in love again with your beloved. Fall in love again with your beloved. Tichros la bris chadasha. Make a new covenant with her. So Rav Pillai says he never understood the true profundity of that statement until he heard what his son had said to his wife. That what's Yom Kippur? Yom Kippur is not simply forgiveness. Yom Kippur is not simply a blank slate. It's not simply a tabla rasa. It's not simply a new beginning. It's a bris chadasha. It's a brand new covenant. That Yom Kippur, how many times do we go through life and we say to ourselves, if only I could do it all over again. Some of us think that every once in a while. Some of us think that a couple of times each day. Right? If only I could do that all over again. Now the truth is, nothing could take you back, 20 years, but you can do it all over again. Yom Kippur represents the opportunity, as we say, Tichros la bris chadasha, ani koreit itach brit chadasha. Let's make something new together. What happens in life is we get on this conveyor belt of existence, and we don't get off it until we draw our last breath. And we get used to behaving certain ways, and we get used to acting certain ways, and we get used to talking certain ways and conducting ourselves in certain ways. And we kind of just solidify a pattern of behavior. And we forget that if we want to become different people, we have the ability to do so. If you want something different for your life that is within reach, if you want something different for your persona that is within reach, if you want to become someone different, you can do that. Tichros la bris chadasha. It's a brand new covenant. Yom Kippur comes, and if we combine these two ideas together, Yom Kippur comes and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Ki bayom hazeh, number 2, again, Ki bayom hazeh yechaper aleichem utar eschem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, listen, let me tell you what I'm going to do for you. Here's what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to give you kapara. I'm going to wipe out all of your punishments. I'm going to give you tara. I'm going to erase all of the tumah that has built up as a result of your negative activity. I'm taking it all away. So the Ribono Shel Olam says to us, Tichros la bris chadasha. I'm willing to say, like the Gemara says, my dahava hava, what was. Let the past be the past. Let the last number of years be the last number of years, and let's make something new going forward. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts out there for us. That if we want to start again, we have the ability to do so. This is the power of Yom Kippur. And that's why Rebbe says in number 5, that's why Rebbe says so profoundly, that the truth is, Yom Kippur, as strange as this sounds, Yom Kippur is not about what you're doing for God. Yom Kippur is about what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing for us. He is giving us a reset, I've used this example before, this mashal before, and to me it's very profound. You ever have to do a factory reset on your phone? You ever have this? Right, where something goes wrong and you have to do a factory reset. So, first of all, like the pachad that comes with the factory reset, right? Like what's going to happen to all of my contacts? Now there's iCloud, so it's a little bit different, right? All of my messages, all of my emails. So if you've ever had to do a factory reset, after you overcome the fear, there is nothing more liberating in the world. Suddenly, my life is a blank canvas. I'm not behind in any voicemails because they don't exist anymore, right? No more unanswered text messages, WhatsApp, emails. There's nothing there. And for those 4 minutes, right, before everything just clogs back up again, there is this incredible feeling of being liberated, being free. And like for once, maybe I can make something different out of my life. And that's just true with your phone. Alachas kama v'kama in life. We get stuck on the conveyor belt of existence. And one year bleeds into another, into another, into another, into another. And before we know it, we wake up 30, 40, 50, 80, 90, 119. And I fail to take advantage of all the new starts, all of those years. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, every year I whisper in your ear, Tichros la bris chadasha. Let's make something new together. Let's create something new and beautiful together. Why does it have to be the same continuation of all the same stuff that's always broken, that's always in a state of disrepair, that's always not working? Why don't you just become someone different? Become someone new. And by different, by the way, I don't mean different, totally different. But just decide to live differently, decide to do differently, decide to be differently. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us the ability to do that. The kapara, or I should say the kapara and the tara, the absolution or the removal of punishment, and the removal ultimately again of impurity, is the Rebbe Shalom clearing the way for us for a bris chadasha, for a brand new covenant, for a brand new beginning, for a brand new start. The challenge is, right? What's the challenge? So if you think about this, I don't know, I can't say honestly that I've ever activated this dynamic of Yom Kippur before, but I have a very good excuse for it. Why? Why is it so difficult? This is such a beautiful message. Like this is what, I want this. I'll take 2 days of Yom Kippur if I can get this. This is what I want my whole life. Just a cleansing, just a new beginning, just a fresh start. So what is it that prevents us from activating it? I think one of the things that's so complicated is all of the vidui, is all of the confession. It's really hard to feel like you're getting a fresh start where every other word out of my mouth is Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Al Chait, and this, that. And sometimes you go through that list and we like to pride ourselves on the fact that, oh, you know what, I would never do that one, right? Until the year comes when, oh, I did that one. I did that one. And it's depressing. It's really depressing. And what's even more depressing is a lot of us save ourselves from depression. How? Just whatever you do, don't read it in English, right? Because at least then I don't fully know what I'm saying. I kind of like get the gist, but I don't have to feel totally guilty. And whatever you do, don't turn to the back of the art school Machzer. I do not know who put this in, but there's an appendix that goes through all of the subsets of every single Avera. So and it's codified and it's alphabetical and it's most severe to least severe, chronological, everything. So this is, and again, the reality is I go through it and there's a lot of stuff in there that I've done. It's very hard to feel like you're being given a new lease on life. And it's very hard to feel the kapara and the tara when the majority of the day, a large part of the day is steeped in vidui, is steeped in confession. Because remember again, what does confession do? Confession tethers me to the mistakes and the failures of the past. So on one hand, you're telling me that the power and profundity of Yom Kippur is that I have this ability to go ahead and start new. Kapara, tara, everything is fresh, everything is new, everything is incredible, fantastic. But then on the other hand, again, remember, and when does vidui start? Mincha and Erev Yom Kippur already, right? And again, it's not the most upbeat message, but remember again, why do we start vidui and Mincha Erev Yom Kippur? Because we're afraid that somebody may choke during the Sudam of Sekes and die without doing vidui. It's not exactly the most uplifting message, right? It's not exactly come on, this is going to be great, kapara and tara. No, you might die during Sudam of Sekes, so you better get in your vidui now. So it's these incredibly contradictory messages. That on one hand, the power and profundity of this day is kapara and slicha, right? Kapara and tara, bris chadasha, brand new, everything cleared away. But yet vidui, constant confession, constant apologies, constant tethering to the past. And again, enough viduis, and enough al chaitz and hashamis. And how are you feeling? Pretty guilty, right? Pretty guilty. Because the truth is, At the end, if you're a thinking person, by the time you get to the end of the Hashamnus and the Achitz, what I'm often thinking to myself is, I wasted another year. Not totally, I did a lot of good things also, but I see everything that I did wrong. Chet itself always has a double implication. Whenever I commit an Avera, there's dual liability. What's dual liability? So part one of the liability is for the Avera that I did. Part two of the liability is because in that time that I was doing an Avera, I could have been doing a mitzvah. So an Avera represents a double loss. The loss of the iniquity performed and the loss of the opportunity to have done something good. So how do you reconcile these two concepts? I want to show you something incredibly beautiful. If you take a look at number 6 on your sheet, the last source, there is a beautiful mashal from the Dubna Magid. If you look at the second paragraph, look what he writes. And this is so beautiful, and at least for me, helped to reframe the entirety of what we are accomplishing over the course of the Yomim Noraim, or what we are accomplishing on Yom Kippur with Vidrei. Look what he writes. Mashal Shnei Chaverim. He tells the mashal a story of two friends. Tzemed Reim, best of friends. Shaya Aniyim ve'Avyonim. Now they were friends, and they were also both incredibly poor. They were impoverished. The Chazru Yachdav al Psachim, but they were such good friends, they always went collecting together. So wherever they went collecting for tzedakah, they always did so together. B'derech Masam, Chala ha'echa meva machla iyuma, midabekes. So we'll call them Reuven and Shimon. Right? Reuven and Shimon, best of friends, both unfortunately terribly impoverished. They go collecting together. Reuven becomes very ill, and he's ill with some type of disease that's contagious. Chavera yada shemiskala davramach la yishlechu asachola lebidu lebeis acholim lechashuchem merape sham yedader matzavo ad lavo kitzo. And what happens? So it's fascinating. So Shimon knew that if word gets out that Reuben has this contagious disease, what's going to happen? They're going to send him to a hospital, but the unit for contagious diseases, and he's poor, so he has no money. He's not going to get any care. He's just going to die. So Shimon is not going to let that happen to his friend. He says, "Lo hichlit achavra amasar ekacheu imi ve'edag lo kechol yachalasi." So what happens? So Reuven decides, you know what? Shimon. Shimon decides, you know what? I'm not going to let my friend go to the hospital and die. So Shimon's the healthy friend, says to Reuven, "You come with me. We're going to travel together. And here's what we'll do. B'chol makom bo'am dag l'chol lachsan yinocha v'yamaster es divrei chalyo." So what happened? So they traveled together. Whenever they would arrive at a town, so Shimon would go to the inn. He would tell Reuven, you lay down, take care of yourself, rest up. I'll go collecting for both of us. This is a chaver. Shimon, the healthy friend, healthy beggar, says, I'll go collecting for both of us, you stay here. So one night Shimon comes back from collecting. He comes back to the inn. He hears that in the same inn where Shimon and his sick friend Reuven are staying, there is a very well-known physician who is staying there. Miyad Allah el chedro shel harofe nikash ala deles v'sipra sipur shel chavero. Kivodo mevin amar lo askim lintosh also beis machse aval ulai efshel lahakel al matzavo. So Shimon goes up to the room of the doctor, knocks on the door, tells the doctor everything that's happening with Reuven. It's good chaver, his friend. And he says to the doctor, he says, I want to tell you, I'm not taking Reuven to a hospital. But maybe you could come, check on Reuven a little bit, and you could see maybe there's something you could do to just ameliorate, that you could maybe make his disease, make his plight, make his situation a little bit easier to deal with. The physician responds, so the doctor says, astonished, says, Shimon, your friend can be healed. I don't just have to treat some of the symptoms. I know what he has, I understand it, and I can actually heal him from this sickness. Why did you not seek out treatment for your friend? This is a very treatable disease. He doesn't have to go to the hospital. He can be treated outpatient, not a problem. So the doctor says, Shimon, take me to see Reuven right now. So Shimon takes the doctor. They go to the room where Reuven is. Shimon says to Reuven, here's the doctor. Tell the doctor everything. Show him the wound. Show him what's the problem. Tell him about all of your symptoms. Reuven says, Reuven says, Shimon, you betrayed my confidence. We made a deal. We weren't going to say anything about this because if news about my disease becomes known, they're going to send me to the hospital, to the isolation ward. I'm going to die there. So what happens? So Shimon responds, Hergana ana chavero, anu shomrim esasom ibnei kulam, aval zehu rofe mumcha. We're hiding your disease from the Welt, from the world, right? Because the world doesn't understand your disease. And when they hear what you have and they hear that you're contagious, they're just going to throw you in the isolation ward. But this is the expert doctor. This doctor, he knows how to heal everything that is ailing you. Lefanav yesh lagalas are called to this, that, but the only way he can heal you is if you tell him everything that's wrong. You got to tell him everything that's broken. And if you tell him all the symptoms, you tell him all the problems, he'll heal you. But don't hide anything. Right? It's like when you go to the doctor. If the doctor says, how are you feeling? And you say, fine. Right? Doctor's like, okay, whatever your copay is, and have a great day. See you later. Right? So the Maisa, so again, Shimon says to Reuven, the doctor's here. But the only way it works is if you tell him what's broken. And the Dubna Magid says, we have such a skewed view of vidui. We often look at vidui as the confession of our guilt before the Ribono Shalom. Well, here's what's important to understand. I don't have to confess my guilt before God. You know why? You know why? He knows it already. And even the stuff that I forgot, right? Lifanecha, even all the stuff, dar nishkachos, lifanecha him giluim v'yeduim. Even the stuff that I forgot a long time ago, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows. It says the Navagi. Do you know what vidui is? Vidui is when I come up for HaKadosh Baruch Hu and say, Ribono Shalom, I want this new start. I want this kapara. I want this tara. I want this bris chadasha. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's so much that is broken inside of me. And you are, as we say every day in Asher Yatzar, the Rofei kol basar umafli lasos. You are the great healer. You are the one entity in the world who could put anything back together. I go through life and for a variety of reasons, I feel so incredibly broken. Vidui is not the confession of guilt. Vidui is the beautiful visit to the doctor and telling him everything that's wrong so that he can heal, so that he could do his job, so that HaKadosh Baruch Hu could bring about miraculous salvation. So it turns out that vidui is not a contradiction to the aforementioned themes, but vidui is part and parcel of the actualization of the kapara, of the tara, and of the bris chadasha of Yom Kippur. And now we understand why we're doing so many confessions over the course of Yom Kippur. Right? Why? And here, think about this just a moment, like I got it. One Ashamnu and one set of Al-Chayitz is more than enough, right? But instead, I'm doing it in Ma'ariv, well, Mincha already, right? Mincha, my private Shemona Esrei. Ma'ariv, in my private Shemona Esrei, in Chazar Sashatz. Shachris, private Shemona Esrei, Chazar Sashatz. Min Musaf, private Shemona Esrei, Chazar Sashatz. Mincha, private Shemona Esrei, Chazar Sashatz. Okay, Ne'ilah is a little bit abridged. That's a lot of Al-Chayitz, and a lot of Ashamnus, and a lot of confessions. But at the end of the day, it's because I need the doctor to know everything that's wrong. Because if I could put out all the stuff that's broken before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then the Rebbe Shalom will say, okay, now that you told me all the symptoms, we could work on getting you better. We could work on healing you. We could work on that bris chadasha. We could work on that kapara. We could work on that tara. And so it turns out that the beauty and profundity of this day is more than we could ever imagine. Yom Kippur offers us the opportunity to literally wipe away all the onshim, whatever punishments we've incurred, because every sin brings punishment. Whatever punishment we can wipe away, Yom Kippur gives us the opportunity to do that. Every sin brings tumah, and Yom Kippur gives us the opportunity to erase all of the impurity, to erase all of the tumah. Yom Kippur offers us the opportunity to say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ani kores itoch bris chadasha. Let's start again. I don't want the past year to be this year to be a continuation of last. I mean, there are certain elements I want to bring over, but I want something new. I want something different for myself as well. And how do you activate all of that? Well, the only way to activate that is through vidui. First, I have to tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu everything that's broken. And not as a form of guilt, not to make myself feel bad. And that's why, by the way, you'll notice, Klal Yisrael has a fascinating minhag. What's our fascinating minhag? How do we say vidui? Hashamnu, bagadnu, gazamnu, dibarnu dofi. We sing it. Right? By the way, try doing that in English. Right? I've stolen, I'm a cheat, I'm dishonest, I'm a liar. Right? I'm immoral. Right? In other words, it doesn't exactly flow off the tongue, right? It's not going to be on your Spotify, playlist, right? In other words, right? So why we see, but now I understand why I'm saying it. Because like sometimes when you're really not feeling well, and if you're like me, you often resist going to the doctor. And finally, when you go to the doctor, there's a certain sense of relief that now you're in a place where hopefully whatever is broken will get fixed. The whole year I run around trying to pretend like nothing's wrong, trying to rationalize, trying to ignore, trying to sweep under the rug. And Yom Kippur comes and I'm finally sitting in the Ribono Shel Olam's office. And Akash Baruch Hu just says one simple thing, Shefala, just tell me what's wrong. Whatever it is, it's okay. It's a no judgment zone. Just tell me what's wrong. Tell me whatever it is. Because whatever it is, I can heal it. Whatever it is, I can fix it. Whatever it is, I can repair it. And I'm finally with the doctor, and I'm finally with the Melech, and I'm finally with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And I get to unburden myself. For one day out of the year, I don't have to pretend. For one day out of the year, I don't have to rationalize. For one day out of the year, I don't have to make up excuses. For one day out of the year, I could just be brutally and totally honest and know that the honesty, the sharing of all of my symptoms and all of my illnesses and all of my scars and everything that's broken just allows the doctor to heal everything. That's why we sing Vidui, because there's no greater simcha in the world than being able to unload your symptoms and illnesses onto the Ribono Shel Olam, who could heal anything and everything. This is the power of Yom Kippur. And now with this, by the way, it also makes sense why we want to, I can't wait to get started with Vidui. Right? So even again, yes, there's a reason about you might choke during Sudim of Seconds. But if you want to kind of end off a little bit of a higher note, in other words, I want to get started because I'm so excited. I'm so excited to finally be sitting in the exam room, right? I'm so excited to finally be sitting with the doctor. I'm so excited to finally say, oh, here it is. Let me just put it all out there. And I can't get enough of telling Kadosh Baruch Hu all the stuff that's broken, all the stuff that's wrong, because I know that He's ready for kapara, for tara, and for bris chadasha. All it requires of us is to walk into Yom Kippur with two things. Number one, a profound sense of honesty. Yom Kippur only works if I'm honest about who I am and who I'm not. If I'm going to play games on Yom Kippur and pretend like I do like throughout so much of the year, then I can't activate the power. But if I'm willing to go ahead and be honest, truly honest, and put everything out there, there is nothing that can't be healed. That's number one, honesty. And number two is a desire for a new start, a desire for a bris chadasha. If you walk in with those two things on Yom Kippur, then there is truly no telling what we can accomplish. And especially in this year of Tafshin Pei, where we need something different. We really need something different. Klal Yisrael, our people, needs something different. This past year has been filled with so much bracha and so much beauty and so many incredible, incredible things, but it has also been filled with so much loss and so much heartbreak and so much sadness that is almost too overwhelming to contemplate and to think about. And as we've been speaking about throughout all of Yomim Noraim, that Tafshin Pei Hey, Halavai should stand for Tehei Shnas Pirsum Hanes. Should be a year of open miracles. A year of open miracles. A year of like Yam Suf miracles, of Yitzias Mitzrayim miracles, of Man miracles. Akash Baruch Hu does miracles for us every single day, like we see in Modim. We speak about everyday miracles, but everyday miracles are embedded in Teva, they're embedded in nature. We see to HaKadosh Baruch Hu this year no more. We want supernatural miracles. We need something different. We need HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It sounds a little chutzpahdik, but we need HaKadosh Baruch Hu to run His world differently. Because what we experienced last year Our collective heart cannot weather another year like that. Sekadosh Baruch Hu, I need you to run your world differently. And you know what Hakadosh Baruch Hu says back to us? No problem. You want me to run my world differently? As long as you promise to run your world differently. I, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, will have a bris chadasha with you. As long as you, Klal Yisrael, have a bris chadasha with me. If we pivot and do things differently and activate the power of this day, then we could ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to do the same for us. And in that respect, it'll truly be a year of Pir Samanes, a year of incredible miracles, a year of tshuva for us as individuals, a year of tshuva for Klal Yisrael, a year of Achdus, a year of the return of our hostages, a year of the safety for our precious soldiers as they wage Klal Yisrael's wars on multiple fronts. And most of all, the Pir Samanes, the great miracle of Geula, of Mashiach, of the Beis HaMikdash, of all of Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael. And may we be Zoche Eretz Hashem to see all of that. Mihira B'Yameinu. Amen.
Amen.